What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we back with another amazing Naruto one-shot. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. 13-year-old Naruto Uzumaki was having the time of his life. He'd just completed the longest series of pranks in his lifetime. From the moment he woke up to right this moment he'd been pranking. First off it was booby-trapping Iruka-sensei's desk to fall apart, then pouring hot sauce in everyone's lunches, setting buckets of water above every door in the academy, taping a "kick me" sign to Mizuki-sensei when he tried to scold him, not to mention setting lust dust in the Pokegirl facility's air shafts. Finally, he had painted the Hokage monument, giving all 4 Hokages neon orange mustaches and owl glasses. That was probably the best one. Right now he was running from the victims of his wonderful pranks, laughing his head off as he sped through the streets of Konoha. A group of wet, dusty academy students, men, women and craved Pokegirls who were chasing their tamers running after him. Losers! He laughed as he ran around a corner and ducked into an alleyway as the mob ran after him. They'll never catch me. Is that so, Naruto? Came a familiar voice from behind him. URK, he choked as he turned around. Aye, Iruka-sensei. The scar-faced Chunin sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. Naruto, I can get why you pulled all those other pranks, he said, but why did you have to go and paint the Hokage monument like that? Naruto swallowed but kept his composure. He'd planned for this happening. "'Cause I'm gonna be the greatest shinobi ever and become Hokage," he said, pumping his fist. "And I'll be the only tamer in history who becomes Hokage and I'll surpass everyone else before me. Even the Yondaime." Iruka sighed as he grabbed Naruto by his jacket collar and started dragging him towards the Hokage building. "Naruto, you'll never become Hokage if you keep pulling these stupid pranks," he scolded. "Honestly, why did you even think about putting lust dust in the Pokegirl facilities?" Suddenly a very female shadow fell over them both. Iruka looked up and swallowed as Naruto grinned. "That's why," he said. "Hey, Miyu-chan." "Hello, Naruto-kun," said the dominatrix in a sweet voice as she looked at her tamer, her stilettos clicking on the roof. "You, Iruka Amino, are coming with me. You still owe me for last night." Miyu-chan," Iruka stammered as the plant-poisoned Pokegirl lashed her whip around his waist. "I, have to, punish Naruto." "Yeah, I have to punish Naruto for these pranks." Miyu licked her lips at the word punish, and Iruka swallowed, seeing that her hair and shoulders were covered with lust dust. Oh boy, was he going to get it tonight. With a girlish shriek that one would normally expect from a certain pink-haired banshee coming from Iruka, his Pokegirl gave the whip a yank, and with a squeal of joy from Miyu, the two of them vanished out of sight. Naruto sighed, thankful that he'd remembered to fix lust dust in Iruka's house as well. Thanked Kami-sama for giving the world Pokegirls. Pokegirls had appeared around 12 years ago all over the elemental nations in a wave that spread out and engulfed the known world. A species of only females who possessed powers that rivaled trained shinobi that required on a daily basis had raised some forms of alarm. Most people, civilian council, called for their execution initially, but slowly the shinobi population changed their minds when they saw the powers that the Pokegirls possessed. After the general hysteria in the civilian population had calmed down, people and Pokegirls began to mix and in some cases partner up. Mostly only shinobi could handle their powers, but a few species could get along with civilians. In the last 10 years new class had emerged from the union of humans and Pokegirls, tamers. Tamers were humans who bonded with Pokegirls and worked with them. Tamers also provided their Pokegirls with the taming that they needed. Last year, the Sandame had created a class in the academy where students would learn about how to work alongside with Pokegirls. Naruto thought he did okay in that class. Unlike Iruka-sensei's lectures, these were interesting. And it would all pay off, since the graduation exam was coming up the day after tomorrow. And according to Gigi, the exam would be a little different than in years past, but the old man wouldn't tell him anything about it. His stomach suddenly grumbled. Quickly checking his wallet to see if he had enough for lunch, he turned and started towards Ichiraku's. He thought he deserved a little treat for all of the mayhem he'd caused. He just hoped that someone liked his pranks just as much as he did. Not far off, Macavity was holding her stomach from laughing so hard. She'd seen everything that the boy had done and absolutely adored it. While not as destructive as what Genova usually did, it was just too funny to see that Chunin get yanked away by that dominatrix screaming like a little girl. Even if she'd been forced to stay outside of the village, she'd been right to hang around this place. There was never a dull moment. That boy was a comedic genius when it came to causing mayhem. In a way, he reminded her of herself. She flinched as her twinged, a wash of neediness washing over her body as a reminder. She'd gone too long without taming and would go feral if she didn't get soon. Her eyes turned to the blonde boy. Naruto, as the older blonde man had called him when she'd escaped. He'd certainly grown up well and he seemed to have an adequate knowledge of Pokegirls. She'd wait a while before making any decision. But she would not wait long. There was nothing worse than the sensation of going feral, especially for a legendary. Maybe I should investigate a little bit? She thought as she teleported down to the street level and put herself in a small illusion to hide her Pokegirl features. Get to know him on a personal level. She was about to walk over to him and talk to him when an idea popped into her head. A very, very, very not nice idea that only she could come up with and only she could actually carry out. And it would probably make Naruto mad. Well, of course I'm gonna do it. She cackled to herself as she teleported away to set it up. Naruto. 10 minutes after ramen. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed as he walked back to his house after going to Ichiraku's. There was this tingle on the back of his neck whenever he walked. When he turned around it would go away. The streets were pretty much empty, most people taking one look at him and then either turning around or walking in a different direction. He would have felt bad about being ignored, but he was too nervous to focus on it. He turned around again and kept waking. The tingling sensation got even worse, so he walked quicker, glancing over his shoulder. Finally he couldn't take it and broke into a full run towards his home. He raced up the stairs, opened the door and ran inside as fast as he could. He was so scared about what was following him that he didn't notice that his bedroom door was slightly ajar as he ran inside, which was a catastrophic mistake on his part as the bucket that was balanced on top came crashing down and dousing him in neon orange paint. Gah! He yelled as he tried to wipe the paint away from his eyes, staggering to the left and into a tripwire. Whoa! He fell down into another rope that hoisted him up by his ankles, dangling from the ceiling like a Christmas ham, shock written all over his face. Did someone just prank me? He thought to himself in shock as he hung there, orange paint dripping from his body and making puddle on the floor. Laughter filled the room, a teasing cackle that reverberated off the walls. It almost reminded him of his own laugh after he pranked someone. Gah, damn it, he cursed, flailing around wildly. Somebody get me down. This ain't funny, Ibeo. I don't know about that, said a sing-song voice that seemed to come from everywhere. It's pretty funny from where I'm standing. Yah, he screamed, flailing around wildly as the laughing started again. Who said that? Admit it, I got you, the voice said, not giving any clue as to who was speaking. No way. He shouted, crossing his arms and scowling. There's no way that someone can prank Naruto Uzumaki. Admit it and I'll cut you down, the voice said. Forget it, he said, turning his head. I'll get out of here myself, believe it. Half an hour later. Wanna give up now? The voice asked again, the previous mirth still present in its tone. Never, Ibeo, he shouted, still trying to undo the knot around his ankles, but still not managing to reach it. I never give up. How could I become Hokage if I gave up when things got tough? Even the Hokage needs to acknowledge when he's lost, the voice taunted. Well, I don't, he yelled, his fingers brushing over the knot. And I haven't lost yet. Ha! He grabbed the rope and gave the knot a yank, the binding coming undone and dumping him on his head. Ow! He muttered as he picked himself up, rubbing the new lump on his forehead. See? I totally got out of it without help. The voice was silent. He waited a moment for a response, but none came. Hello? He asked, looking around. Are you still here? There was no response yet again, so he shrugged and looked down at himself and scowled. He was still covered in paint. Ah, man, now I've gotta do laundry, he muttered as he pulled off his once black shirt, flecks of paint flaking off as the fabric bent. Muttering to himself about not funny pranks, he walked to his small, cramped laundry room. It was in the basement of his apartment building, which was empty except for him since no one seemed to want to even live around him. He quickly walked down the stairs to the basement, still brooding about being pranked, even if he was never going to admit it. Sighing, he opened the door and walked into the dark laundry room. Suddenly something grabbed his shoulders and violently shook him. Boo! Iya! Naruto screamed like a certain pink howler monkey as he jumped 6 feet in the air, coming face to face with the tallest person he had ever met. She was definitely taller than Iruka-sensei, maybe about 7.5 feet. She had to be a Pokegirl since she was covered in bright orange and red fur that reminded him of a flickering flame as she moved. Her hair was the same shade of bright orange as her fur, flowing down her back. It was a little unruly, but it only seemed to make her even more beautiful. She had feline features, not to mention a long orange tail that was lazily flicking around behind her. She was wearing a black leather halter top that barely covered the biggest set of breasts he'd ever seen, and a pair of form-fitting shorts that were cut so short he thought he could almost see something. The cat lady smirked as he hit the ground. "Now I got you," she said, her voice being the same as the one from his bedroom. "Fine, you got me. Happy?" he said, her face turning down in a foxy frown. "You got it, Gaki," she laughed. Slowly, Naruto's frown curved up and he startled giggling along with the laughing Pokegirl. The laughing got louder and before either of them knew it, they were rolling on the floor holding their stomachs. "Why are we laughing?" Naruto wheezed out in between giggles. "Do we ever need a reason to?" The Pokegirl smirked as she stood up and brushed herself off. "Well, I should probably get going. Nice seeing you again, Naruto." "Wait, who are you, Oni-chan?" he yelled, running and jumping a little so he could grab her wrist. "And how do you know my name?" "Simple, you told me when I got you with the rope," she said, that smirk still not leaving her face. "Oh yeah, haha," he said, rubbing his head with a foxy smile. If his eyes had been opened, he might have seen a soft smile emerge on the Pokegirl's face before it vanished back into her prankster smirk. "Anyway, you asked for my name," she said, clearing her throat, making a victory pose. "I am the legendary Macavity, Cleric of Chaos, or the Mistress of Mischief, but I like the word cleric better." "You're a Pokegirl, right?" he asked without even noticing her pose, making the Mistress of Mischief sulk for a moment. "Why?" the feline Pokegirl asked with a teasing grin once she recovered. "Thinking of adding me to your harem so you can brag to your friends, Gaki?" What happened next could be likened to an angel losing its wings. Naruto's bright smile faded into a thin line on his lips as his eyes grew downcast. The single light bulb in the laundry room seemed to dim as well, casting an aura of gloom over the room. Macavity swallowed. Had she crossed a line? "I don't really have any friends," he said with the voice of a child who had no one at all. Had she been anyone else, Macavity would probably have apologized for bringing it up. But because she was a legendary, she could almost foresee what was coming next. The depression on Naruto's face vanished and was replaced by an expression of determination. "And that's why I'm gonna be Hokage," he said, his eyes regaining their luster. "'Cause then everyone will have to respect me and I'll have tons of friends, Datbeo." He looked up and saw that Macavity's face was really red and she was panting hard. "Macavity-chan, are you okay?" he asked, walking really up close to her. "Naruto," she panted, "how much do you know about Pokegirls?" "I know a lot," he said proudly. "I'm really good in that class." "You know how to handle a Pokegirl who's about to go feral?" "Yep," he said, reaching into his back pocket and pulling out a small orange book. "Gigi gave me this book that says what to do with a Pokegirl, but I haven't read it yet." The book was Icha Icha Paradise by the gallant Jiraiya-sama. "But Iruka-sensei taught us what we should do," he said, putting the book away. "And Miyu-chan told me some of the stuff that he wouldn't, so I think I know enough about what to do." "Great," Macavity said as she grabbed Naruto's arms and literally dragged him up the stairs back to his bedroom. Wait, what's going on?" he asked as she kicked open the door to his bedroom and tossed him down on it. "Taming," she said huskily, tackling him down and pinning him with his face right below hers. "Your fur is soft," he said, nuzzling her stomach as she curled up around him. "Glad you like it," she said as exhaustion threatened to claim her. "Can we do this again sometime?" he asked, sitting up and looking her in the eye. Macavity smiled a gentle smile and kissed him on the forehead. "Let's make a bet, Naruto," she said. "You're gonna take your graduation exam soon, right?" "How did you know that?" he asked. "It's super top secret shinobi stuff." She grinned and drew him close to her chest. I have my ways, she purred as he ran his hand through her hair, petting her. Anyway, here's the bet. If you can pass your exam, not only can we have another taming session, but I'll become your Pokegirl. What happens if I don't? He asked, worry creeping into his voice. I've already failed the exam twice. She leaned in and kissed him on the lips, drawing it out as long as she could. Don't worry about that, Naruto, she purred. Just try your best and everything will work out. Now let's get some sleep, alright? Yeah, he mumbled, pulling the driest section of the sheets over both of them. I'm gonna train all day tomorrow. Naruto ran into the academy, careful to contain his excitement. He could feel Makavity's presence behind him as she walked, completely invisible to passers-by. With her behind him, now he almost didn't notice the glares he got from the villagers. He quickly jogged down the hallway, burst into his classroom just as the bell rang. At the front of the room, Iruka and Miyu, who was probably filling in for Mizuki, stood behind a large table that had rows of headbands sitting on it. Iruka noticed Naruto standing at the front of the room and frowned. Naruto, you're really starting to cut it close, Iruka warned, Miyu shaking her head at the blonde's antics. This is the last day, remember, sensei? He grinned, folding his arms behind his head. Yeah, right, yelled a certain pink-haired howler monkey. Like a baka like you could ever pass. Suddenly, Sakura's head flew forward and her face smashed on the front of the desk. Ghost! Kiba yelped as Akamaru scampered behind him. There's no such thing as ghosts, Kiba, Iruka scolded as the Inuzuka boy. But I must say that this is a strange occurrence. It's this baka's fault, Sakura screeched, almost shattering the windows. He's trying to act cooler than Sasuke-kun. Shut up, forehead, Ino shouted. Naruto can't do that. Naruto was doing his best not to laugh at Makavity's pranks. It was difficult, but he was managing very well. Speaking of Naruto, Iruka said with a sly smile as Miyu giggled. Come on up here and get your headband. You've earned it. The entire classroom went silent looking at Iruka with disbelief. Naruto cracked a smile as he saw Sasuke looking at him with utter shock. Ah, yes. This was the attention that he had been wanting ever since day one. The day that he outdid Sasuke fair and square in the shinobi arts. Sensei? Choji asked, a bag of chips in his hands. How come Naruto gets to be a genin before he takes the test? Simple Choji, Miyu said, sweetly, her whip dangling at her hip as she walked out from behind the desk. Naruto-kun took the test last night and passed both the genin and tamer. He also helped the Anbu apprehend a traitor to the village, and Sandame Sama thought that he deserved to be given his headband and tamer permit. Whispers broke out all around the room. Naruto? A genin before them? And a tamer? Naruto caught a traitor? No way. The dead last graduated before all of them? Before Sasuke-kun? Impossible. Naruto baka, give your headband to Sasuke-kun now. Sakura shouted at him. He deserves it more than you. I got it fair and square. He protested, walking up and tying it on around his forehead. Do I look cool, Iruka-sensei? Yep. Iruka smiled before handing him a key. Your new Pokegirl is in room 32. Wait, a new Pokegirl? Sasuke asked. What about the starter? Oh, Naruto-kun already has his starter, Miyu said, handing Naruto another contract seal. Have fun, Naruto-kun. Thanks, Miyu-chan, he said with a foxy grin. Iruka-sensei, take Naruto Baka's Pokegirls from him and give them to Sasuke-kun. He needs them to restore his clan. Sakura shouted again, her voice reaching new octaves. With another thud, her face hit the desk again, thankfully knocking her out. Troublesome woman, Shikamaru said, looking at Sakura out of the corner of his eye before going back to sleep. Iruka nodded and cleared his throat, everyone looking away from Sakura's body. Okay, we will now commence the test, he said. Naruto, you should go introduce yourself to your new Pokegirl. Hang around once I'm done and we'll get ramen, alright? Naruto, who had been staring at Sasuke with the biggest shit-eating grin he'd ever had, turned back and smiled at him. You got it, sensei, he said. Hold on a second, Dobi, Sasuke said. What kind of Pokegirl do you have? Naruto paused at the door and looked back in with a mischievous grin. The most awesome one ever, he said as he left. The second he shut the door, Makavity reappeared in front of him, looking down at him with her usual prankster grin. Well, let's go, she said, walking down the hallway. We don't want to keep your new Pokegirl waiting. Right, he said, jogging after her, her longer legs carrying her farther than him. They reached room 32 after a few minutes of walking and giggling about certain pranks they wanted to play. Naruto unlocked the door and they walked in. It was very well lit inside. Each of the windows was open wide, allowing sunlight to pool in the center, right on the Pokegirl inside. She was about Naruto's height, maybe taller by half an inch. Her skin was a deep green like tree leaves and her hair was only a few shades lighter and hung down to her shoulders. Her hair reminded him of tall grass, a little wild but yet still straight. She was incredibly curvy, and her skin also seemed to have little dark patches all over, giving her an exotic look. The most noticeable feature of her body was that she had a large plant bulb situated on her lower back, right above her ass. That, and the fact that she was completely naked. At the sound of the door closing, she opened her eyes, which were a brilliant crimson, and sat up. Naruto gawked. Her breasts were huge. They weren't as big as Makavity's, but they had to be at least D-cups. And yet she was his height. "Oh, so you must be my new tamer," the girl yawned. Yeah, I'm Naruto Uzumaki," he said, remembering his manners, walking over and sticking out his hand. The girl shot him a sly look from beneath her half-lidded eyes before standing up and walking over to him. "These are cute," she said, rubbing one of his whisker marks. "So who's this girl?" It took him a few seconds before he realized that she was pointing at Makavity. "This is Makavity-chan," he said, putting his arm around the feline legendary's waist with a foxy grin. "She's my first Pokegirl. Makavity-sama." The lazy girl suddenly snapped to attention and bowed at the waist. "Forgive me for my insolence, I didn't realize it was you." Makavity just snickered and walked to the other side of the room. "Forgiven," she said with a lazy wave of her wrist. "Hey, Naruto, think you could spare a shadow clone for me? Or do you want to do it with all three of us?" I think I want to learn about her first," he said, fighting back a nosebleed at the image in his mind. "So what kind of Pokegirl are you?" "I'm a Bulbasaur," she said. "Do you have a name?" he asked. "I was told that my new master would name me," she said. "Since you're my master, you get to name me." "Okay," he said, adopting a thinking pose. How about Harumi?" "I like it, master," she said with a smile, walking over to Naruto and pressing his arm into her cleavage. "So, am I gonna get tamed now?" Should we really do this in the academy?" he asked. His arm sank even deeper into Saki's cleavage. "I mean, people could hear." "Doesn't matter to me," Makavity said, her massive breast suddenly appearing from nowhere and pressing against the back of his head. "So I assume the two of you will want some private time then?" Yeah," he said. "I promise that I'll make it up to you, Makavity-chan." "You could start by giving me a shadow clone or two," she purred, licking the side of his neck. "You can finish repaying me later tonight." He nodded and formed a single clone, not missing the hungry look in Harumi's eyes as she eyed the clone and the real Naruto together like pieces of meat. Makavity grinned and pulled the clone away to a corner of the room. Harumi just grabbed his arm and pulled him over to the futon set out in the middle of the room where she had been laying. She pulled him down so he was lying on his back and climbed onto his chest, her lips just centimeters away from his own. "I'll have to be on top, master," she said. "My bulb will hurt if I lay on it." "It's fine," he grinned, reaching up to cup her face. "I don't want you to be uncomfortable." "Wow," Harumi panted as she slumped over on her stomach. "Master. That was amazing." "He is, isn't he?" Makavity chuckled as she walked back over, having popped the shadow clone a few minutes before. "That was awesome, TT Ibeo." Naruto shouted as he hugged his newest Pokegirl, kissing her on the lips. "You taste nice, Haru-chan." Harumi blushed, her skin darkening to a deeper shade of green as Makavity laughed. Thank you, master," she stuttered before she regained her seductive aura. "Feel free to taste me whenever you want." Naruto was about to respond back when there was a knock on the door. "Naruto-kun," Miyu called through the door. "The exams are finished and Iruka-kun says he's ready to get ramen with you." "Okay, Miyu-chan," he called as Makavity's stomach rumbled loud enough that everyone. "Hungry, Makavity-chan?" he teased. The cleric of chaos smiled sheepishly and rubbed the back of her head. "A little bit," she admitted. "How about you, Harumi?" "I could go for some food." The Bulbasaur nodded as she pulled on her clothes, a black bikini top and matching bottom. "Then let's go," he said, almost kicking down the door. Iruka-sensei's treating all of us to ramen. Master, wait, Harumi called as she ran after Naruto. You still haven't put the seal on me. One contract seal later, Naruto walked back into the classroom with Harumi behind him and Macavity following her, invisible. Only 8 of the class had actually passed, 9 in total counting him. Each of them was wearing a headband and almost all of them had a Pokegirl next to them. Iruka noticed him come in and smiled at him. Okay, now that Naruto's back, I want to congratulate all of you on graduating, he said. From this moment forwards, you are all shinobi of Konohagakure and legal adults. This life will be one of hardship, but I know each and every one of you will become a great shinobi. It was an honor teaching all of you. You'll all need to come back here tomorrow to get your team placements, though, so I'll see you tomorrow. Class dismissed. He looked at Naruto and nodded as everyone else filed out of class. Meet me at Ichiraku's in half an hour, Naruto, he said. I have to report to Hokage-sama. Why don't you talk to your classmates for a moment? Gotcha, sensei, he grinned. Come on, Harumi. The 3 of them walked out into the yard. Naruto baka. Wow, not even 2 steps, he said as he turned to face Sakura. What is it, Sakura? I know you were the one who hit me before. She yelled. Take this. She swung a sloppy haymaker at Naruto that didn't even connect. Harumi jumped in front of Sakura and lashed out with both of her vines, slapping her hand away before grabbing her around the waist and tossing her against the fence. No one touches my master. Harumi snarled as Sakura got up. Another troublesome woman, Shikamaru, yawned from the tree he and his new Pokegirl were sleeping under. Agreed, his Pokegirl, a drowsy, yawned back. Thanks, Harumi, he smiled and patted her shoulder. Kachiyose. Sakura yelled, summoning a short, oily-skinned Pokegirl. Yuri, get that plant bitch. The side dyke blinked a few times before running at Harumi, claws outstretched for her bulb. Hold on a damn minute. Ino yelled at the top of her lungs, stopping everyone in their tracks. If you two want to fight, fight fair. I guess, Ino's right, Naruto said, scratching his head with a vulpine frown. I'll still beat your ass, Naruto. Sakura screeched. Yuri, you scratch. The side dyke ran at Harumi, her claws outstretched for the Bulbasaur's face. Harumi, use razor leaf. Naruto called out. Aim for her feet. Harumi nodded and started shaking her ass, her bulb releasing bladed leaves that flew towards the side dyke's legs like green shuriken. The bladed leaves made impact, cutting the man-hating Pokegirl's ankle tendons and making her fall over. Now use vine bondage. Vines sprouted from the ground beneath Yuri, lashing around her and tying her up in a very suggestive manner. The psychic Pokegirl struggled around, thrashing and spitting words not appropriate for a child. Kiba and Shino slapped their hands over Hinata's ears as Sasuke, Shikamaru, Choji, and Naruto all turned red in the face after Yuri mentioned the usefulness of a certain part of the male body. Yuri is no longer able to battle, Ino called, not wanting the foul-mouthed side dyke to go on. The winner is Harumi and Naruto. No way, Sakura shouted. This demon baka must have cheated. There's no way a looser Pokegirl like that could beat my Yuri. Sakura, Sasuke said as he sat next to his new Pokegirl. Shut up, Sasuke-kun, she shouted, shock and horror present. You can't be taking Naruto's side over your one true love. I'm not, he said. And you're not my one true love. I'm saying shut up because you're hurting my ears. Mine too, said his Pokegirl in a calm voice. If you don't shut up, I'll burn you for hurting Sasuke-sama. Sasuke's Pokegirl was about his height, with deep red scales. Her hair was a flame color and was cut short around her head. Her breasts were a low B cup, covered by a white sundress which allowed her tail to poke out from behind her, the little fire on the end staying far enough away so she wouldn't set it on fire. She was a Karamanda. Sakura opened her mouth to scream again, but closed it seeing the Karamanda spit out an ember into the grass near Yuri's face. Fine, she said in a normal voice. Sasuke-kun, do you want to go out with me to Celebra? No, he said, standing up and walking out of the academy. Kana, we're leaving. I've got training to do. Yes, Sasuke-sama, the Karamanda said as she quietly followed him out. Sakura and Ino soon followed after, Yuri waddling after them with disappointment on her face. Wow, Kiba whistled as his doggerel sat in his lap. First time I've heard Sakura be quiet, right Maki? Yeah, master, the dog-girl nodded as he petted her. She's awful. It is puzzling, Shino said, his spinnertit hung from the tree behind him. Why? Because she never shuts up. What do you think, Shikamaru? Choji asked in between chips. Too troublesome to think about it, the lazy boy mumbled as his drowsy slept on, using his chest as a pillow. Yeah, later guys, Naruto waved as he, Harumi, and Makavity walked for the gate. Iruka-sensei's treating us to ramen. Ramen? Choji perked up. Hey, Naruto, can me and Shikamaru come? Sure, he shrugged. Yo, count us in. Kiba butted in as he and Maki stood up. I could go for some grub. Oh, can we go? Shino-sama? Asked the spinnertit. Ramen sounds good. Perhaps, the Aburame mused. I assume that Iruka-sensei will be paying for all of us, right Naruto? Yeah, he said, turning to the last member of the group. What about you, Hinata? Me? She said, turning a little red in the face. Anyo. I suppose so. If you're asking me to come, Naruto-kun. Awesome, TT Ibeo, he said, wrapping his arm around Harumi. It's a date then. Date? With Naruto-kun? Meep. Hinata squeaked and fainted. What's wrong with Hinata? He asked. Is she sick or something? Nah, she's fine. Kiba rolled his eyes as he pulled her onto his back. So Ichiraku's now? Yeah, let's go. Naruto smiled as he led the group of fresh genin tamers towards his favorite restaurant. Timeskip. Next day. Where's our sensei? Sakura, I'm begging you. Naruto was down on his hands and knees, Makavity right behind him in the same position as him. Please, just shut up. This had been going on for the last 3 hours. He had come to the academy early, only taking Makavity with him since Harumi needed to sunbathe and wake up. To his utter horror, when Iruka-sensei had called the teams, he'd been stuck with Sakura and Sasuke on Team 7 led by a man named Kakashi Hitaki. Sasuke had been a little different at first, actually smiling for once as his Karamanda, Kana, leaned on his arm, nuzzling him from her seat next to him. But the second Sakura burst in with Ino, racing for who got to sit next to Sasuke. While Ino had acknowledged that the seat was taken, Sakura had actually pushed Kana out of her seat and taken it herself, acting like nothing had happened. Needless to say, Sasuke was not happy. After moving around the room for 5 minutes and having Sakura follow him, he had taken Kana and moved to right next to Naruto. Sakura had tried to force Naruto out of his seat, but was silenced by Makavity slamming her head against the desk and knocking her out again. There had been a lot of applause for that. After the other teams had been called, they'd been sent to this room to wait for their sensei. That was 3 hours ago, and they were still there. Sasuke and Kana had their fingers in their ears, wincing as Sakura complained. Makavity and Naruto were next to them, Naruto begging while Makavity held her tail around her head while she plugged her tamer's ears. Should I knock her out again, Naruto? Makavity whispered in his ear. Toss her out the window, he muttered. It'll last longer. How on earth did I used to think she was cute? Simple, she said, stroking his whiskers. You met me, aren't I so much better than her? Yeah, he said, a smile creeping onto his face as he slipped his hand backwards to her thigh and gave a light squeeze. You're beautiful, Makavity-chan. Dobi, who are you talking to? Sasuke asked, eyebrow cocked. Nobody, he quickly said. So, how are you and Kana doing together? Kana blushed hard as Sasuke gained a light crimson line over his nose, looking away. We're okay, he said. Sasuke-sama is a good master, Kana mumbled. Naruto grinned and leaned in close to them. So you two already tamed, huh? He said. Shut up, Dobi, Sasuke mumbled as Kana invented a whole new shade of red. Aha, so you did tame her, he exclaimed, clapping an arm around Sasuke's shoulder. Congratulations, the first taming is really important for both of you. No, the window actually cracked as Sakura screamed. All of them yelped and clapped their hands over their ears in vain, but the damage had been done. I was the one who would take Sasuke-kun's virginity. Sakura yelled at Kana. I've spent hours following him around, leering about him so I know what he wants from a girl. And you worthless Pokegirl, just come in here and take what's rightfully mine. Kana's tail flame sparked to a blazing roar and she opened her mouth, heat pooling there. Naruto felt Makavity wrap her arms around him, ready to teleport both of them out of harm's way if things got bad. Sakura had already bit her thumb to summon Yuri and Sasuke was reaching for a kunai. I never liked you, Sasuke shouted. You just stalk me and ask me out all day long. Why would I like you? Kana's better than you in every way. Suddenly the door opened and a masked man with gravity-defying hair walked in and looked at them. So you're my new team? He asked. I guess so, Naruto nodded with a foxy grin. The man gave them an eye smile. My first impression of you guys. You're boring, he said. Meet me on the roof in 3 minutes. With that, he vanished in a shunshin. Should I take you there, Naruto? Macavity whispered. Please, he whispered as Kana's tail heated up again. With a flash and a sensation that his molecules were being squeezed, he was up on the roof. Well, you're certainly up here fast, Kakashi remarked. Yeah, haha, he folded his arms behind his head and grinned as Macavity let go and backed away behind him. I love the shunshin. Kakashi seemed to glare at him for a moment, not like the kind of glare that the villagers gave him, but the kind of glare that said he knew he was lying. But after a few minutes he just shrugged. A second after that, the door to the rooftop opened and out walked Sasuke and Kana. Sakura followed them, her hair and clothes smoldering as she shot Kana the death glare. Right, now that we're all here, let's introduce ourselves, Kakashi said with another eye smile. Tell me your names, likes, dislikes, dreams, and any hobbies that you have. Why don't you start off, sensei? Sakura asked, speaking in a normal voice for the second time that day. Alright, I guess that's fair, he said, clearing his throat. I'm Kakashi Hatake. I have no desire to tell you my likes and dislikes. My dreams for the future. As for my hobbies. I have lots of hobbies. All I learned was his name. Naruto thought with a sweat drop. How about you start, emo kid? Kakashi asked Sasuke. Sasuke said. I'm Sasuke Uchiha. I hate a lot of things, and I don't particularly like anything other than Kana. What I have is not a dream, because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan, and kill a certain someone. Naruto's sweat drop got bigger. Could he be any darker? Okay, you next Pinky, Kakashi said. Okay, she said, her voice raising an octave. My name is Sakura Haruno. I like. She looked at Sasuke and giggled. My hobbies are. Sasuke again, who was now being guarded by an angry-looking Kana. My dream for the future. Sasuke was actually hiding behind Kana now. And I hate Naruto baka. Go figure, Macavity scoffed, to which Naruto shrugged. Okay, you're up, Whiskers, Kakashi said, pointing at Naruto. Alright, Naruto said. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I love miso ramen, training, and my Pokegirls. I hate people who don't like Pokegirls, slackers, traitors, and the 3 minutes it takes to make ramen. My dream is to become an elite tamer and be the first tamer to become Hokage and have everyone respect me, Ibeo. As if you'd become Hokage, Yubaka. It was getting harder and harder to ignore her now, but thankfully Kakashi spoke up again. Right, well, for now we are Team 7, he said. Meet me tomorrow at Training Ground 3 for your test. What do you mean by that, sensei? Naruto asked. I thought that we already passed the exam? That was just a test to see who had potential to become Genin, Kakashi said. This is a test to see who will actually stay Genin. So meet me there at 7 tomorrow morning. Oh, don't eat breakfast either, you'll just throw up. Bye. With that, he was gone in another shunshin. Right, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Naruto waved as Macavity grabbed him again and teleported back to their house before Sakura could open her mouth. Master, Harumi said as he reappeared in the living room. Good morning. Morning, Haru-chan, he said as he kissed her. Ah, where's my kiss? Macavity pouted. Naruto rolled his eyes as he kissed his feline legendary hard on the lips for a good minute or so. Much better, Macavity purred as she lay down on the couch. So what are you going to do about this test, Naruto? Train hard for it, he said, confidently. Just don't steal the forbidden scroll this time, okay? She joked as Harumi just looked on in confusion. Macavity-chan, he pouted with a vulpine frown. Oh, I'm just teasing, she giggled as he walked over and began petting her. Don't worry, master, Harumi said as she walked over to Naruto and sat on his lap. We'll help you pass this test. He smiled at the both of them. Thanks you guys, he said. Thanks for believing in me. He looked out the window towards the still orange Hokage monument. Kakashi-sensei won't know what hit him, he said. Passing this test will be easy, Datbeo. Naruto whistled as he walked to the training ground, Harumi walking beside him with a large smile on her lips. It was just them for once, since Macavity had opted to stay at home and sleep in a little. She'd told him to summon her if he needed anything before he left, but just make sure that. Harumi, on the other hand, had been all too eager to go with him, which was strange since her kind usually liked to catch a sunbathe early in the morning. So what are we gonna do, Master? She asked as they neared the chain-link fence of the training ground. Not sure yet, Haru-chan, he shrugged. He just told us not to eat breakfast, so I don't know. Harumi just nodded as they walked in. Right away, he saw Sasuke and Kana sitting under the tree with Sakura and Yuri on the other side. The pink howler monkey was shooting weird glances at the last Uchiha, which Kana would just return with a flare of her tail while Sasuke was pretending not to see any of it. Morning, Teme, Naruto said as he walked to the shade of one tree and sat down under it, Harumi laying down with her head on his lap. Dobi, Sasuke replied. You're late, Naruto Baka. Sakura said. Sorry, I had to eat breakfast, he grinned sheepishly. Baka, Sensei told us not to eat breakfast. She shouted. Yeah, well my other Pokegirl told me to, he said with a shiver, remembering Macavity threatening to hold him down and force him to eat his Okayu if he didn't eat on his own. And believe me, she can be really scary when she wants to. Is she your alpha, Naruto-san? Kana asked. I guess she is, he said. She's really strong, so she deserves that position the most. What kind of Pokegirl is she? Sasuke asked. I'd tell you, but Sakura's here, he said, looking over at the bratty genin. She'd probably go running to her mother and try to have her taken away from me. If she's really strong, then she belongs to Sasuke-kun, Sakura huffed. A loser like you doesn't deserve Pokegirls like that. You deserve weak Pokegirls like that Bulbasaur. Harumi twitched and her bulb started to produce a few razor leaves. Not wanting things to get bloody, Naruto quickly calmed her down by massaging her shoulders. He opened his mouth to retaliate, but Sasuke beat him to it. Didn't Naruto beat you in a Pokegirl battle yesterday? He asked. He cheated, she snapped. I was top kunoichi, so there's no way the dead last could beat me and my Yuri. This is why you and I belong together, Sasuke-kun. The side-dyke just smirked and then sent Harumi a loathing glance. Harumi just stuck her tongue out as Naruto continued massaging her. Sasuke, also noticing that Kana was beginning to stand up, grabbed her by the shoulder and whispering something in her ear which made her calm down a little. Hey, shouldn't our sensei be here by now? Naruto asked as Harumi moaned softly under his fingers. Sasuke nodded, looking at the sun. I guess that means, yes, he thought. Hey, Sasuke, he said. Wanna train a little before sensei gets here? Sasuke looked at him a little bit like he was suggesting he actually go out with Sakura. Kana gave him a subtle elbow and he sighed. Fine, Dobi, he said. Naruto rolled his eyes and stood up, Harumi laying down on the edge of the shade with a yawn as she started to sunbathe. Kana just settled against the trunk of her tree and relaxed, watching as the two of them got into sparring stances. By the time that Kakashi finally arrived, almost 2 hours later, Sasuke had already beaten Naruto twice with Naruto pulling one victory. Yo, he said with an eye smile. You're late. All three of the genin, plus their Pokegirls, yelled. Sorry, Kakashi said sheepishly rubbing his head. A black cat crossed my path and I had to take the long way around. Thud. All three of them instantly face-grounded. What kind of crap excuse is that? Sasuke snapped, pointing at Sakura. We've been waiting for 2 hours. Do you know how annoying she gets? I said I was sorry. Kakashi seemed surprised at the last Uchiha's outburst. Well, at least you're ready to begin, right? He reached into his pouch and rummaged around inside it. The test is very simple, he said, pulling out 2 bells attached to a string. You have 1 hour to take these bells for me. If you don't get a bell before noon, you fail the test. Sensei? Sakura raised her hand. What happens to the people who fail? Simple, Kakashi said. If you don't get a bell by then you obviously aren't fit to be genin and you'll have to go back to the academy. But there are only 2 bells. Naruto yelled. That's not fair. A shinobi never fights fair, he said, tying the bells around his waist. If you don't want to go back to the academy, then you'd better get a bell. Come at me with intent to kill. I won't just be giving these out. Naruto nodded and settled into a fighting stance, Harumi shooting up from where she was laying and standing beside him as she began producing razor leaves. Sasuke whistled and Kana ran over to him, tail burning brighter than before. Yuri walked over to Sakura, claws extended and ready to fight. "Oh, right," Kakashi said, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. "I forgot to mention this before, I have an additional rule. Your Pokegirls are not allowed to help." "What?" Naruto and Sasuke shouted at the same time. "You heard me," he said. "The Sai Dike, Bulbasaur, and Karamonda are not allowed to help you, any of you. If they do, then you all fail. This test is for shinobi only." Fine," Naruto roared, "but I'ma kick your ass for this." "Harumi, stay back. Kana, you too," Sasuke said, over his shoulder. Kakashi's eyes smiled as hit the button on the alarm clock. "Go." Sakura and Sasuke jumped away while Naruto roared and charged at Kakashi with his fist cocked. Kakashi just caught his fist and flipped him over onto his back, pulling out a little orange book and flipping to a certain page with a perverted giggle as he started reading. "Gra!" Naruto yelled as he flipped to his feet and made a seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 11 Narutos poofed into existence, surrounding the Jonin. "Take this!" They yelled in unison as they pulled out kunai and lunged at Kakashi. The Jonin's eye widened as he was buried under the clones as they tackled him. "Take this!" "Ow, you jerk! You aren't getting away from us, sensei!" After about a minute of an overly comedic dust cloud fight, the clones stopped brawling and looked around, realizing that Kakashi was nowhere to be found. "Hey!" Naruto pointed towards one of the clones at the center. "You're Kakashi-sensei. You used the henge to change into me." "I'm not Kakashi," the clone yelled, pointing at the clone who grabbed him. "He's hanged into the clone grabbing me." "Why you little?" was the collective outcry from the rest of the clones as they pounced on that one Naruto. Lots of screaming ensued. When the smoke cleared, there was only one Naruto left. He was beaten up, bruised, and looking very embarrassed. "Ha ha 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 ha." Kana fell over laughing so hard, her tail flamed scorching portions of the grass as she rolled around. You beat yourself up." Kakashi wasn't even there. "Shut up," he muttered as Harumi walked forwards and tried to hug him. "Harumi, don't. Remember, I'll fail the test if you help." "But what will Makavati-sama think?" she whispered. "She'll get angry at me for not helping you." "That's it," Naruto exclaimed, snapping his fingers with a light bulb going off over his head. "Harumi-chan, you're a genius. I'll tame you later tonight, okay?" "Hey, Kana, why yes?" the Karamonda wheezed out in between giggles. "Where did Sasuke go?" he asked. She pointed deeper into the woods before rolling over and continuing to guffaw at Naruto. Harumi just scowled at her as Naruto turned and ran off into the woods where Kana had pointed. About 3 minutes later, he ran out into another clearing. "Sasuke," he called. "Down here, Dobi," came a very embarrassed voice. Naruto looked down at his feet to see he was nearly standing on Sasuke's face. The last Uchiha was buried up to his neck in the dirt, scuffed up and bruised. Naruto had to choke back a laugh at the Rookie of the Year looking like a carrot in someone's vegetable garden. Sasuke rolled his eyes at his blonde teammate. "Just get me out of here, Dobi," he grumbled. Naruto just nodded, still smirking, as he dug Sasuke out of the hole. "So Kakashi-sensei got you too?" Sasuke asked, jerking his head at Naruto's new bruises. "Yeah, but I figured it out," he exclaimed, dragging Sasuke back into the woods. "Do you know where he is?" "He said something about going after Sakura next," Sasuke said, yanking his arm back. "Dobi, what are you doing?" Naruto bit his thumb and wove the seals. "Kachiyose." With a puff of smoke, Makavati appeared in mid-yawn. She blinked a few times, looking around for Naruto before she finally found him. "Hey, Naruto," she yawned again. "Who's the emo kid?" "Makavati-chan, this is Sasuke," he said, pointing at the blinking Uchiha, who was trying not to stare at her massive chest. "Sasuke, meet the legendary cleric of chaos, Makavati." "LLL legendary?" Sasuke gasped out. "Ah, you've heard of me?" Makavati feigned bashfulness. "I'm flattered, kid. So what did you call me for, Naruto?" "Well, ya see." He quickly explained the circumstances of the test. Makavati snorted when he explained how his own clones had beaten him up and how he had found Sasuke a few minutes earlier. "Let me guess," she said. You want me to prank the hell out of this Kakashi guy for doing this to you too, right? Actually, Macavity-chan, he said, scratching the back of his head. I was hoping that you could steal the bells from him for us? She cocked an eyebrow. You took down a Chunin by yourself, Naruto, she said. I'm sure it can't be that bad. He's a Jonin, Macavity-chan, he explained. So he's a lot better than Mizuki Teme. Sasuke and I couldn't even get near him without getting beaten up. You're the only one who can get them. But didn't he say that you aren't allowed to have Pokegirls helping you? She asked. Yeah, but he said that only Harumi, Kana, and Yuri weren't allowed to help us, he said. He didn't say anything about summoning other Pokegirls to help out. Sasuke's eyes widened at that. That was brilliant. How the hell did the Dobi come up with something like that? Macavity was also impressed, as evidenced by her colossal prankster smile. This is why I like you, Naruto, she said, ruffling his hair. Well, this and you have that monster ko. Ahem. Sasuke cleared his throat loudly. Right, she rolled her eyes as she gave her tamer a long kiss on the lips. Anyway, I'll steal the bells for you guys. But I'll need you two to distract him for a minute or two while I take him or he'll know something's up. Gotcha, he smiled as she vanished into thin air. How are you doing on chakra, Sasuke? The last Uchiha smirked. Don't tell me you're running low already, Dobi? You wish, Teme. Naruto snapped back at him. Suddenly there was an ear-piercing shriek from the eastern portion of the training ground. And there goes Sakura. We need to move fast, Sasuke said, turning and running back towards the training ground entrance. Dobi, listen to me. I need you to do exactly what I say if this is going to work. Alright, Teme, he said as Sasuke explained his strategy. One strataggy later. Kakashi turned to the woods as Naruto staggered out from in between the trees, huffing hard. He looked like he's been put through a paper shredder. His face was covered in dirt, both eyes swollen. One was swollen shut, blood pouring from a possibly broken nose, and it looked like he was missing a few of his teeth. His clothes were ripped up and one of his arms was dangling at his side with a long cut on it. The masked Jonin sighed as he walked over to the genin and grabbed him by his good shoulder, pulling him onto his back to be carried to the hospital. You couldn't have hurt yourself this bad on your own, Naruto, he chided the blonde genin, who was barely conscious by this time. Oh wait, you had help, didn't you? Hey, said the blonde. Hey Kakashi-sensei. The Jonin said, looking over his shoulder. Lesson 1 of being a shinobi, he grinned. Never show the enemy your back. With that, the clone exploded in a cloud of smoke, blinding Kakashi. He felt a tug at his waist and snatched at the bells. They were gone. As soon as the smoke died down, he could see Naruto and Sasuke standing in front of him, each of them with a bell in their hand and a smirk on their faces. Clever, Naruto, he praised the blonde. Having one of your shadow clones fake being hurt so I would come close and then dispelling it to give Sasuke some cover to go for the bells. Nice teamwork, you two. It was the Tame's plan, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. For once, he actually deserves the credit. Suddenly there was a blow to the back of his head and he fell forwards, feeling the bell being snatched out of his hand. Ha, true love conquers all. Sakura yelled out in triumph as his head throbbed. I got a bell. Now Naruto Baka has to go back to the academy and we can be together, Sasuke-kun. Slap. Sakura spun around in a clockwise direction, staggering as the vine that has stuck her across the face retracted back to Harumi, whose face was absolutely livid. How dare you touch my master? She growled out at Sakura. Mistress. Yuri yelled, running over to her tamer and knocking Sasuke out of the way and throwing him down. Ah! Kana had spit out a cluster of small embers at the Psyduck's head, setting her hair on fire. Enough! Kakashi yelled. Sakura, you fail. What? She screeched. But I got a bell. At the expense of your comrade, Kakashi said. If this was a real battle, would you kill your comrades to save your own life? Only if it was Naruto, she said as the blonde in question got back up, rubbing the lump on his head. No one loves him and he's always trying to get between me and Sasuke-kun. He's better off dead anyway. I see, Kakashi said. Get out. What? She asked. I said leave this training ground, he said, pointing at the gate. I refuse to be your sensei if you say you are willing to kill your friends on a reason like that. You can't do that, she screamed at the top of her lungs. My mother is on the civilian council. which holds no jurisdiction over the shinobi forces of this village, he said, coldly. You may have gotten a bell and passed this test by the book, but you will never be a kunoichi under my command. Sakura's face looked like a volcano ready to explode. Her mouth was moving rapidly, but no sound came out. Finally, she grit her teeth and sucking in a deep breath. This isn't over, she growled as she turned around and walked for the gate. Yuri, we're leaving. The side dike followed her mistress without question, shooting a death glare at Kakashi. As soon as they were gone, Sasuke let out a huge breath and fell backwards onto his back. She's gone, he laughed. She's finally gone. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said, animate tears of joy falling down his face. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I thought I was gonna go deaf. It's fine, really, he awkwardly smiled down at the two of them. I'll just report to Hokage-sama about this incident and get us a third member of the team. Kurenai does owe me a favor or two for when I caught her trying awesome as smokes. So as of this moment, we are Team 7. Yata. Naruto fist pumped as Sasuke just gave a subtle smirk as Kana walked over behind him. Congratulations, Sasuke-sama, she said with a soft smile. Master, you're awesome. Harumi shouted as she jumped on Naruto's back and kissed his neck. Ahem, Kakashi said before the Bulbasaur could start releasing lust dust. Be at the Hokage building at 7 tomorrow. We begin our missions right away. With another smile and a wave, he vanished in a shunshin. Phew, I thought he'd never leave, Makaviti said as she reappeared next to Naruto. Makaviti-sama, Kana automatically bowed at the waist. Thanks for the help with the bells, Sasuke said. But Dobi, why didn't you tell Kakashi about her after he passed us? I thought you'd be dying to brag about having her as your Pokegirl. Yeah, but Sakura had a point yesterday, he said, looking a little downcast. If someone found out about Makaviti-chan, they'd try to take her away from me. And I'll never let that happen. So until Kakashi-sensei shows that I can trust him, then I'll keep Makaviti-chan a secret. Sasuke said, turning away. Does that mean you trust me, Dobi? I guess so, he chuckled as Makaviti grabbed him and Harumi. See you tomorrow, Sasuke, Kana-chan. With that, they vanished from the training grounds. He wanted to prove that he was strong on his own. That and he didn't want to accidentally summon her when she was in a mood and have her clobber him. Plus, Hinata was here and he didn't know if she was trustworthy or not. What do we do? Naruto whispered. I'm thinking, Sasuke whispered back. Well, think faster, Teme, he snapped. Anyo, Hinata protested. Please don't fight. They'll hear us. Sasuke and Naruto glared at each other for a moment before Sasuke blinked and grinned. Dobi, make some shadow clones, he said. See if you can distract them. Then Hinata, you juken Tora unconscious and then we'll just grab her and get out of here. Naruto grinned and formed the seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 8 Narutos appeared and ran into the clearing, whooping and teasing the Pokegirls until they finally got a rise out of them when one clone decided to spank a catgirl and run. The horde of feline Pokegirls growled and ran after the fleeing clones. Now, Sasuke said to Hinata. The Hyuga heiress jumped from cover and landed a solid Juken strike to the base of Tora's neck. The kitten tensed and then fell over with a mule as Hinata caught her before she hit the ground. Alright, Naruto cheered as Hinata jumped back to them, handing the unconscious Pokegirl to Harumi, who tied her up with vine bondage just in case. Let's get to Gigi and get paid. Sasuke and Kana smiled and then their faces turned ashen. Right away, they lunged forwards, tackling Naruto and Harumi out of the way as a dark orange blur launched itself at them. They made it just in time as the attacking Pokegirl landed right where they had been standing and landed on all fours. You alright? He asked. Why yeah, Naruto replied, shakily as he pointed at the Pokegirl behind them. But I think we're in trouble. The attacker had a sleek, well-muscled feline frame. She had a furred tail and cat ears covered in reddish-orange fur with black stripes, which covered her entire body. She had a nice breast size too, around a large C-cup. She wore a ragged loincloth and a scrap of tan cloth around her bust to keep them bound. She was around 6 feet tall, making her a tigress. The tigress roared and charged at them on all fours, claws tearing large chunks in the ground as she ran. This was a massive clue that she was most likely feral, and thus extremely dangerous. Kana jumped in front of Sasuke and breathed out a steady stream of fire, a flamethrower attack, right in the tigress's face. However, the tigress just crouched low to the ground and sprang into the air over the fire, dropping like a rock towards Sasuke with her claws outstretched. "Harumi, use razor leaf," Naruto yelled, throwing shuriken at the incoming tigress. Harumi dropped Tora and launched her attack, the storm of bladed leaves managing to land a few hits on the tigress as she batted away Naruto's shuriken with her claws. "Vine whip," he called, creating a few clone as Sasuke began weaving seals. He lunged at the tigress, slashing and stabbing with his kunai as she countered each one, using a few impressive kicks and judo moves to pop his clones before throwing him at Harumi, who was lashing out at her with her vines. They collided, ending Harumi's attack early as Sasuke finished the last hand seal. "Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu," he yelled as he exhaled a ball of fire the size of a bowling ball at near point-blank range. The tigress gave an elegant backflip to avoid the fire, the tip of her tail and her left thigh getting singed as she wasn't fast enough. "Ni sho," Hinata yelled as she lunged forwards and struck the Pokegirl twice in the burned leg before she was kicked away. But the damage was done. The tigress took a step with leg and noticeably winced, growling at the three genin as they got up. "Cage Bunchin," Naruto yelled, forming more clones with more kunai. "She can't keep doing this forever, guys." "Neither can we," Sasuke groaned, the Gokakyu no Jutsu having eaten a lot of his chakra. "She can't run and now," Hinata said, timidly. "I think I got the major muscle groups with my Jukin and Sasuke may have burned her. We could try to get away." "No way," Naruto said. "I never back down from a challenge like this. If I did, how could I become Hokage? No shinobi ever got strong by running away, and I'm not gonna run from this." After a moment, Sasuke smirked and got up. "You're right, Dobi," he said as he brushed himself off. "I'll handle this. You, Harumi, and Hinata cover Tora. Leave the tigress to me and Kana." "No way," Naruto shouted. "She'll kill you if you go in there by yourself." "I want her," he said, preparing a contract seal. "She'll be helpful to have in future battles. Especially when I finally go against that man." Before either Naruto or Hinata could say anything, Sasuke and Kana dashed forwards. Kana blew out a storm of embers towards the tigress's face, which she had to block with her forearm. Sasuke dropped low to the ground and slid in between her legs as she blindly swiped with her claws as Kana kept up the ember. He popped up behind her, taking a few steps up the trunk before back-flipping over the tigress's back and slapping the seal in between her shoulder blades. The tigress's entire body flashed red as the contract seal calmed her down, giving her a temporary tamed state until Sasuke could give her a proper taming. She swayed back and forth before collapsing on the ground. Silence reigned as each of them waited with bated breath, hoping that she would stay down. After a minute of holding their breaths, Sasuke walked over to the tigress and checked the seal. He breathed a sigh of relief. "It worked," he said. Naruto and Harumi let out their breaths as Hinata began panting hard. "Thank Kami-sama," she said as Harumi tied Tora up again. "Let's get out of here," Naruto said as he supported the tigress's other shoulder. "Before those other catgirls come back here." Sasuke and Kana both nodded as they ran back towards Konoha, the unconscious tigress snoring away as they carried her. Half an hour later, Hokage office. "I must say, I am impressed with the three of you," Hiruzen said as the fire daimyo's wife left the mission room after paying, suffocating the poor Tora and ignoring the poor kitten's cries of discomfort. "If she's not careful, she's gonna be a pantheress one day," Naruto whispered to Sasuke as the kitten tried to squirm out of the fat lady's arms. "In that case, we're never going after that kitten ever again," the last Uchiha whispered. "Oh okay," Hinata whispered. "Not only did you manage to complete your mission," the Sandame continued, "but you managed to capture a level 3 evolved Pokegirl. Good job, you three. You have all earned this." He gave them their pay, which contained a nice bonus for capturing the tigress, who Sasuke had named Tora after their toughest mission to date. Said Pokegirl was currently being treated at the Konoha hospital for the injuries she sustained. "I'm proud of you guys," Kakashi said, ruffling Naruto and Hinata's hair. "You did a great job with this mission." "Yes you did," Iruka smiled at Naruto. "Now tomorrow, you'll get your choice of missions," Hiruzen said. "We have weeding gardens, cleaning the academy, walking the Inuzuka dogs." "No way in hell, Datbeo." Naruto yelled, crossing his arms in front of his chest. Come on Gigi. Don't give us these stupid chores. We're shinobi now, not academy students. Give us a tougher mission. I'm with the Dobi, Sasuke said. We all hate doing the chores, Lord Hokage. Give us something that will test us. Hinata poked her fingers together. I wouldn't mind a different type of mission, Lord H. Hokage. Here is inside, but then smiled. Alright, he said, I'm going to give you a C-ranked escort mission to the Land of Waves. Naruto grinned, images of him and his Pokegirls defending a nobleman or a princess dancing through his head. Said images were shattered when an old bespectacled man walked in, a bottle of sake gripped in his hand. So this is my protection? He asked, his voice a drunken slur. They're just a bunch of brats. And look at the one in orange. He's such a shrimp. I'll slaughter you, TTE Bayo. Naruto shouted as he lunged for the old man. Now, Kakashi said as he held the blonde back. No slaughtering the customer, remember? Ignore the drunk, master, Harumi said, giving her tamer a kiss to the cheek. He doesn't know what he's saying. You're short too, the drunk slurred, pointing at her. Even your boobs are short. Naruto barely managed to keep his Pokegirl from slicing the man to bits. The man took another drink and chucked the bottle out the window, letting out a long belch. I am Tazuna, he said. A master bridge builder. You lot will be guarding me on my way home to the Nami no Kuni. Okay then, Kakashi said, clapping his hands. Go home and rest up guys. Meet us by the gates tomorrow with your gear at 8. See you then. With that, he vanished in a puff of smoke. Come on, Haru-chan, Naruto said as he grabbed his Bulbasaur by the hand and pulled her out of the Hokage building towards their home. My first real mission as a shinobi, he thought as they ran through the streets with Harumi. This is gonna be awesome. Right, your new tamer, Genova nodded. How are things with him so far? Oh, wanting to know the details, huh? Macavity teased. Well, if you're so interested in how good he is in bed, I could probably get him to include you in one of our taming sessions. She had to teleport again to avoid another nightshade. I wasn't talking about taming, Macavity. Genova growled. I know, she grinned. You're just too funny when you're riled up. Counting me, Naruto currently has 2 Pokegirls. His second is a Bulbasaur named Harumi. Is he strong? Fairly strong, she nodded. But he has amazing potential. He's the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. If Genova had been drinking at that moment, she would have spit everything in her mouth out all over the tiles. A Jinchuriki? She was almost screaming. You remember what the Biju almost did to us back then? Especially Kyuubi? Don't worry, she said. That baka fox is sealed up tighter than a miser's purse. In a random bounty office, Kakuzu sneezed, causing him to drop the money he was counting and consequently attempt to murder Hidan out of anger. Trust me, Macavity continued. There's no way he's getting out anytime soon. It's your funeral, she said. I remember Kyuubi hated you the most for what you did to him. Oh yeah, that, she snickered. That was hilarious. They fell into casual conversation for the next few minutes, mainly talking about food and taming. Macavity ended up promising to get Naruto to make Iruka to treat her to Ichiraku's. They cracked a few jokes before Genova's face turned a little serious. I talked to Basti a few days ago, she said. She and Met have set up shop in some ruins on island close to Mizu no Kuni. Really? She was surprised. I thought Basti would have gone somewhere where she can get tamed easy. Met convinced her, Genova said. But she told me something else. Remember that hurricane that happened last month before you met Naruto? Macavity nodded. How could she forget? The storm had decimated half the woods around Konoha. Basti said she saw her inside the tornado when it passed over them, she said. Macavity's eyes widened and she swallowed. Is she sure it's her? Genova nodded. Oni-sama's still alive, she said. And she's free again. With Naruto. About a mile outside of Konoha. Dobi, keep up. Sasuke yelled over his shoulder as they walked along the dirt road, headed east for the coast. Coming, Teme, geez, he grunted. I thought Kana pulled the stick out of your ass already. Tora, who had been walking with them, laughed hard. He's got you there, Sasuke, she chuckled. Tora was now in a completely new set of clothes from yesterday. Instead of the rags she was wearing, she had a blue top with the Uchiha symbol on the right shoulder and a pair of Y mini shorts the same color. She had a few wraps around her right forearm as well, giving her a fighter kind of look. Sasuke just sulked and walked ahead, kicking rock out of the way as he walked past Kakashi and Hinata. The masked Jonin was still reading his book while the timid Hyuga heiress was trying not to look at Naruto, her face turning bright red whenever she did. Tazuna, on the other hand, was walking at a steady pace, trying to ignore the chaos, beautiful Pokegirls walking around him. Now that he'd sobered up, he knew exactly how bad pissing off a tigress could be for his health and was staying quiet out of fear. "Hey, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said as he and Harumi caught up to him. "Think we'll see any enemy shinobi?" "I highly doubt it," he said as they walked around a puddle in the middle of the road. "This is a C-rank mission, Naruto. The most we'll probably see is a bandit or two," asked a gravelly voice right in their ears. A bladed chain flew through the air, looping around Kakashi and wrapping him up tight. Two shinobi jumped past him, the bladed chain trailing from a pair of heavy metal clawed gauntlets. "One little piggy," said the one with two horns on his headband. They gave the chain a tug, slicing Kakashi up into 3 pieces. Naruto just watched on in shock for a moment, not even registering the fact that one of the shinobi was swinging his gauntlet at his head. Tora gave a loud feline roar and punched the shinobi away, her claws leaving long gashes along the man's masked face. "Get the bridge builder," said the wounded shinobi, as he dodged a strike from Sasuke. "I'll handle these brats." "Right," the other man grunted as he moved for Tazuna. "Ni sho," Hinata yelled as she struck the man's gauntlet arm as he ran past her and continued pressing her attack. "Yan sho, Hake sho," she struck him a total of 8 times, but the shinobi raised his gauntlet to block all but one of her strikes to his upper arm. "You little bitch," the man growled as he raised his gauntlet to strike her down. "I'll kill you for that." Naruto blinked and unfroze, dashing at Hinata as fast as he could, Harumi firing off razor leaves to help Sasuke and Tora with the first nin. He moved as fast as he could, jumping into the air and tackling Hinata out of the way as the claws came down. He winced as the metal blades dug into his hand, not cutting deep but making the wound burn. "Hinata, run," he yelled. "Protect old man Tazuna." She just lay there, red-faced, and wide-eyed as he looked down at her. "NN Naruto-kun is touching me," she stammered inside her mind. "I see could KK kiss him now." "Hinata," he yelled again as he rolled away from a claw strike. "All right," she stammered as she ran to Tazuna as she settled into her Jukin stance. "Byakugan." Naruto turned and faced the shinobi who had cut him. The man seemed to be grinning under his respirator, looking at the blood that was dripping off the tip of the middle claw of his gauntlet. "Ready to die, brat?" he asked as he charged forwards. "Hell no, TT Ibeo," Naruto replied as he ran at the man. He automatically ducked the swipe at his head and slid between the man's legs, using the same trick Sasuke had used against Tora. Only he had added something to the mix, a punch to the balls as he slid through. The enemy shinobi made a sound like a dying cow and keeled over, clutching his crotch with his free hand as Naruto popped up behind him and axe kicked him in the head, sending him off to dreamland. Vines suddenly sprouted from the ground and pinned him down as Harumi finished tying both of them up. "We did it," Sasuke breathed as Tora hoisted her tamer onto her back. "Take a rest, Sasuke," she said, not bothering with honorifics like Kana did. "I'll carry you." The last Uchiha grunted, turning away from Tora's face to hide his faint blush as he made a mental note to do more stamina training. Suddenly he remembered what had happened to his sensei moments before he and Tora had been attacked. "Kakashi-sensei." "Yes?" came a lazy voice from above them. "Gah!" both Naruto and Sasuke exclaimed as Hinata fainted. Kakashi just gave them a little wave from where he was sitting, his little book in hand. "You're alive," Naruto cheered. "Of course I am," the Jonin said as he jumped down from the tree and over to the writhing enemy shinobi. "They didn't even see me kawari me with a log after they attacked. I just thought I'd give you a chance to test your skills against them." He looked down at the masked shinobi for a moment before speaking again. "You're Gozu and Maizu, the famed demon brothers of Kirigakure. Chunin ranked missing nins wanted for attempted assassination of the Mizukage," he said, naming each brother respectively. "What are the two of you doing here attacking Tazuna-san?" The two Kiri nin just growled, whimpered at him, since Maizu was still feeling that shot to the balls. "Oh well," Kakashi sighed. "Ibiki will have fun with the two of you." "Harumi-san," Would you mind tying them to a tree so Anbu can find them easier? Sure, she said, her vines moving the two missing nin to reposition them. She then turned around and saw Naruto's hand. Master, you're hurt, huh? He asked as Harumi barreled into him and one of her vines wrapped around his forearm like a tourniquet. Haru-chan, that's a little tight. Harumi inspected the wound, looking at it from all angles. She touched it, sniffed it, and even licked it before she looked up at Naruto again. You've been poisoned, she said, looking at Maizu's claws. Wah, get it out. He began freaking out at her words, waving his wounded arm around wildly. I don't want to die. Naruto, it's just a simple poison. Kakashi tried to placate him. You just need to open the wound a little more so we can let the blood flow out a little, huh? Harumi had taken Naruto's hand and was sucking on the cut. Naruto noticed right away that the stinging and the feeling of numbness was leaving his hand as she sucked out the venom. After a few more seconds, she sat up and beamed at him. Fixed, she announced. Naruto looked down at his hand and saw that the cut had already closed over. All the stinging was gone and he could move it around normally again without resistance. How did you do that? Kakashi asked, intrigued. Easy, I'm half poison type, she grinned. Not a lot of people know, but poison types can extract poison from people. Why would you do that? Sasuke asked. So people we get taming from don't die when they touch us. She said with a cheerful voice as her vine unwound itself from Naruto's forearm and retracted back into her bulb. A shiver ran down everyone's backs, Tazuna included. How can she talk about this so casually? Tazuna-san, Kakashi said, looking at the old man. I don't think you've been truthful with us, have you? The old man swallowed and took a step back before his shoulders slumped as he sighed. You're right, he said as he proceeded to tell them all about a crime lord named Gato and what he was doing to the land of waves. That's why we need the bridge I am building, to free my home of that man's influence. He then got down on his knees and bowed before the genin. I know I am asking a lot, he said, not looking up. And I know that I haven't done anything to deserve such kindness, but please help me free my nation. Suddenly he got up and laughed. Because if you don't, then my daughter will probably swear eternal hatred on Konohagakure, he said with a jovial smile. And she'll probably slander your village's name and your reputation will be ruined, but no worries. It's not your concern. Well, I guess we've got no choice, Kakashi said, awkwardly. This is the worst mission ever. So we're continuing, sensei? Naruto asked. I guess so, Naruto, he shrugged before smiling. Oh, and nice move before. The blonde just gave a foxy smile and folded his arms behind his head. Master is just awesome. Harumi squealed as she tackled him from behind, jumping onto his back and planting a kiss on his neck. Sasuke said as Tora carried him. You copied my move, Dobi. Tora snickered, but his had a lot more effect to it, she said before glaring at Sasuke. And if you ever do that to me, I'll castrate you. Tamer or not, Sasuke gulped and nodded. Shikamaru was right. Women were troublesome. Konoha. With Macavity. This is bad, she repeated to herself for the umpteenth time after she and Genova had parted ways. No, bad doesn't even cover this. This is terrible. If Basitit had been right, then this whole world was in jeopardy. Not even High Bra could defeat Onisama. Not even the Kyuubi could beat Onisama. Even if the Kyuubi fought Onisama with High Bra backing him up, they still couldn't beat her. She was just that powerful. But what does she want now? She asked. There's nothing here she could want. She scowled as she jumped from rooftop to rooftop. Genova said she would look for find their other sisters and warn them. And of course she'd tell High Bra not to jump the gun and go after learning about this. Kami-sama helped the poor bastard who managed to tame her. Gah, she said, stopping to slash the top off a street lamp. Fuck, if Oni-sama was free, then the whole world was in danger. They'd all thought Oni-sama was dead when they'd been sealed since she hadn't been with them all those years. She must have been given her own prison inside that seal since she was so powerful. The worst part was that there was no way to control Oni-sama. She didn't need to be tamed. So even if they could manage to tire her out, there was no way to form a bond between her and a human to keep her under control. In some ways they pitied Oni-sama, but for the most part they feared her like death itself. We'll need to prepare, she muttered, looking at her claws. I'll have to train Naruto myself if we want to even stand a chance. The thought of her tamer sent a warm feeling through her heart, thawing the cold fear that had surrounded it. She allowed her thoughts to drift off topic, thinking of she and Naruto would do when he summoned her that night. A perverted giggle escaped from her lips as she looked up at the sun, counting the hours before night fell and Naruto would summon her. Nami no Kuni. With Naruto. An hour later. What's with all this fog? Tora asked, shaking water droplets from her fur. Lighten up, Harumi said as she sucked in a deep breath. I like this mist. Hinata, is your Byakugan being affected by the mist? Kakashi asked, still reading his book as they walked. No, sensei, she stammered, the veins around her eyes bulging with use of her dojutsu. I can still SSC. The masked Jonin nodded and returned to his book. Naruto, Sasuke, he called over his shoulder. How are things back there? I can barely breathe, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto whined, coughing on some of the vaporous water that invaded his lungs. Where'd this fog come from anyway? Nami no Kuni frequently gets foggy, Naruto-san, Tazuna said. We're so close to the ocean that the humidity is higher than inland. Well, I don't like it, Naruto coughed, water sticking to his skin and clothes like perspiration. I'm with Blondie, Tora grunted, shaking her head to get the water out. Suddenly the bushes in front of them rustled. Right away the three genin rushed in front of Tazuna and fell into ready stances. Sasuke pulling out a kunai, Naruto readying his shadow clone jutsu, and Hinata slipping into her Juken stance. They all tensed up as the rustling got louder. A bead of sweat rolled down Naruto's head as he began thinking of what kind of shinobi could be hiding behind that bush. The rustling got even louder and Kakashi slipped his hand into his kunai holster. Finally, the bushes broke apart and revealed a snow-white bunny. Gah! Sasuke and Naruto both tripped in sync as Kakashi and Hinata relaxed. Harumi let out a sigh of relief as did Tazuna. Tora, however, had a different reaction. Food! She yelled as she dashed over and grabbed the bunny by its ears before walking back. Kakashi-sensei, can we stop for lunch? I can skin it for us no problem. Hinata turned green in the face with Naruto, running over to the bushes and threw up. Sasuke looked a little unnerved while Tazuna just raised an eyebrow. We're in enemy territory, Tora-san, Kakashi said, rubbing the back of his head. Now is not a good time to stop for lunch. Darn it, Tora muttered before she looked down at the struggling rabbit. You don't usually see white rabbits this time of year. Kakashi's visible eye snapped open as he tackled Tazuna to the ground. Get down, he yelled. Naruto threw Harumi down as Hinata lunged at the blonde, missing by a few seconds and piling on top of Harumi. Tora dropped her lunch and threw herself on top of Sasuke as a whooshing sound filled the air. A massive Zanbato sword slashed over the air where they had been standing, flying behind them and burying itself in a tree behind them. Naruto looked up just in time to see a man appear out of a shunshin and stand on the hilt of the massive sword facing away from them. He was shirtless sans for a belt that was used for holding big swords, which only served to show off his well-muscled body and pale skin. His legs were covered by baggy bluish-purple pants with a striped pattern while he had arm and leg warmers with a mist camouflage pattern on them. The bottom half of his face was covered by bandages and he wore his headband sideways on his head, the symbol showing him to be affiliated with Kirigakure. He had short, spiky black hair and seemed to give off an aura of fear. Whoever this guy is, he thought with a gulp, he's bad news. Kakashi got to his feet and looked up at the man. Zabuza Momochi, he said in a calm voice. I never expected to see you. So even the great Sharingan no Kakashi has heard of me. The Kiri Nin spoke in a gravelly voice. What an honor. Who is he? Sasuke asked, looking up at the man from under Tora. He's out of your league, Kakashi said, not turning around. That's all you need to know. Zabuza chuckled as he turned around. So your own brats don't even know the truth about you? He asked. What a shame. Kakashi scowled as he raised a hand to his headband. Naruto, Sasuke, Hinata, he called. Manji formation. Protect Tazuna. I'll handle him. With that, he raised his headband, revealing a red eye with 3 tomo-like marks circling the pupil. Zabuza's eyebrows raised as he locked eyes with Kakashi. The famed Sharingan eye, he said with his lips curving upwards under the bandages. This is truly an honor. The 3 genin and their Pokegirls jumped into formation around Tazuna and held weapons, claws, razor leaves at the ready. Foolish, Zabuza said. Shun shining over to the water and forming the tiger seal. Ninpo. Kirigakure no jutsu. The mist surrounding them thickened to the point where they lost sight of each other. What is this mist? Hinata stuttered. The hidden mist jutsu, Kakashi said, pocketing his book. And the opening stage for the Muon Satsujin Jutsu, the silent killing technique. Silent killing? Sasuke asked. That's right, Kakashi said, scanning the mist with his Sharingan. It's a style that allows the user to take out multiple opponents without any of them knowing they've been killed until it's too late. Like the name says, it makes no sound. Even the victims don't get to make a single noise before they die. They say that you won't even know you're dead until you see Kami-sama standing before you. Zabuza is world-renowned for his mastery of this style, making him a deadly opponent. You keep flattering me, Kakashi. The Kiri-nin's voice seemed to echo from the mist itself. While I enjoy such praise coming from a man like you, I really am on a tight schedule, though. Hand over the bridge builder and I'll let you and your genin live. No way, Naruto yelled, brandishing his kunai at the mist. It's our mission to protect old man Tazuna and we ain't gonna fail. An eerie chuckle echoed through the mist. I was hoping you'd say that, brat, Zabuza said as he appeared from the mist to Naruto's right, his massive Zanbato swinging at Naruto's stomach. It's over. Kakashi moved fast, intercepting Zabuza's slice at Tazuna with a kunai as he pawned a second knife and buried it in Zabuza's stomach. The assassin's eyes widened before he turned into water and fell to the ground. However, another blade appeared from the mist, cutting at Tazuna from over Hinata's head. The Hyuga heiress lashed out with a Jukin strike to the Kiri-nin's torso, causing him to turn to water again. Sasuke turned and barely managed to duck the would-have-been decapitating strike that came his way. Tora growled and pursued the nuke nin into the mist, lashing out with her claws and forcing him back towards Sasuke. This is probably a clone too, Sasuke thought as he stabbed Zabuza right above his tailbone and watched him disintegrate into water. Your brats are well trained, Zabuza said from the mist. You should be proud, Kakashi. The masked Jonin raised a kunai as a response. But, Zabuza chuckled, can they counter this? The mist thinned enough for them to see each other. But Zabuza was nowhere to be found. Behind you, Kakashi called out. Naruto turned around and gasped. Zabuza towered over them, the sadistic grin on his lips visible under the bandages as he drew his Zanbato. He had been there the whole time and none of them had even realized it. Time to die, brats, he growled before looking at Tazuna. You're next, old man. Naruto froze up in fear as the nuke nin raised his blade over his head. He could see his own reflection in the shiny polished metal of the sword, looking at his own wide eyes and terrified expression. He was going to die here, all his dreams, for nothing. No. Vines suddenly lashed around Zabuza as bladed leaves flew through the air. The nuke nin managed to deflect the leaves with the flat side of his blade as Harumi charged him. I won't let you hurt, master. She yelled, getting down on all fours and pointing her bulb at him. A dark speck was launched from the opening in her bulb, impacting on the edge of the Zanbato. The seed broke open on contact and released a web of thinner, stringish vines that wrapped around Zabuza's arm. Graw, he yelled as red light covered his body, emanating from the vines. My chakra. Harumi wasted no time in grabbing her tamer and pulling him away from the Jonin, who ripped the vines off and slashed at her. There was a roar as Tora jumped on his back, her claws raised for a killing blow to his throat. Pathetic, he smiled, throwing her off and blocking Kakashi's strike with his sword. You're getting annoying, Kakashi. He dug his sword into the ground and spun around, using the handle to augment and power a kick he delivered to Kakashi's face. Kakashi, who didn't have time to block, was sent flying backwards and into the lake that ran parallel to the road. Sensei. Naruto and Sasuke yelled at the same time as Hinata trembled, not even being able to bring herself to activate her Byakugan. Fool, Zabuza said, Shun shining to the water behind Kakashi. Suiten. Suiro no Jutsu. An orb of water surrounded Kakashi, Zabuza's hand sticking into it to stabilize it. Hey, got you, he said, grinning underneath his bandages before turning towards shore. Now to finish the job. Suiten. Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. A water clone rose up from the lake and walked onto shore, drawing its own Zanbato. Run, you guys, Kakashi yelled. He's focusing all his energy on keeping me in this prison, so he can only fight you with the clone. If the clone gets too far away from his body, he'll lose control over it. Take Tazuna and run, but if we do that, then who'll save you? Naruto asked. Don't worry about me, he said. Just get to safety. None of us stand a chance against this guy, Sasuke thought, evaluating Zabuza and his clone. And if we try to run, he'll just finish Sensei and then hunt the three of us down. Only Kakashi Sensei can hope to fight this guy. But since he's trapped, then it's up to us to free you. Naruto. Hinata, he called. Come on, I've got a plan. Right, they nodded, almost reading his mind. No, you idiots. Kakashi yelled from within the water prison. He's too strong for you. Just run away. Sensei, there's something you need to know about me, Naruto said as he formed the cross-shaped seal for the shadow clone jutsu. I never go back on my word, and I never run away from a fight. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A massive cloud of smoke filled the battlefield, clearing to reveal about 50 Narutos, all with kunai and smirks on their faces. Let's get, one yelled. Yeah, the water clone smirked and raised its sword and slashed the incoming clones out of existence. Pathetic, it laughed. URK. Zabuza and Kakashi both gasped as Sasuke and Hinata burst out of the smoke made by the dispelling clones, hitting the Zabuza clone in the gut with a kunai and a Jukin strike to the heart. The clone melted into water as Hinata drew a Fuma shuriken from her backpack and tossed it to Sasuke. Catch, she called as the last Uchiha grabbed it midair, drew the blades out, and hurled it at Zabuza. Too easy. The Kiri-nin laughed as he casually grabbed it out of the air. Huh? A second Fuma shuriken appeared out of the shadow of the one Zabuza had grabbed, speeding at the nuke nin's waist. Such flawless teamwork, Kakashi thought as the shuriken neared Zabuza. Obito, Rin, and I never worked this well when we first met. Zabuza, who had little choice in the matter, jumped and let the shuriken pass under him. That's the best you've got? He taunted. Not even close, Datbeo. Came Naruto's voice from behind them. With a puff of smoke, the Fuma shuriken that Zabuza had jumped transformed into Naruto, who threw a kunai at the astounded missing nin's face. Dodge this, no brows. Zabuza yanked his arm free of the prison as Naruto hit the water, sputtering as he came to the surface. Anger flashed in his eyes as he dropped the shuriken in his hand and pulled his Zanbato around. You're dead, brat, he roared as he dashed across the surface towards Naruto. Naruto, get out of there. Sasuke yelled from shore. Master, run. Harumi yelled as Hinata just looked on in pure fear at her crush dying. Naruto tried to swim away, but Zabuza easily closed the gap on him, the Jonin's longer legs carrying him further than he could swim. Suddenly, Zabuza stopped running and gasped. Kakashi was standing in front of him on the surface, wet from the water prison, and anger burning in his eyes. Naruto, he said, go back to shore. That's an order. I've got this. Are you sure, sensei? He asked. Kakashi let out a chuckle. It's nice of you to care, Naruto, he said. But Zabuza's mine. You got lucky, brat, Zabuza said as he faced Kakashi and readied his sword. Naruto swam away as fast as he could as the two Jonin began to battle. As he neared shore, Harumi lashed out with her vines and lifted him out and onto dry land. Master, are you okay? She asked as her vines retracted. I'm fine, Haru-chan, he said, kissing her. Nice throw, Teme. Sasuke smirked as Tora hugged him from behind. You too, Dobi. That was amazing, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, poking her fingers together. Thanks, Hinata-chan. He beamed as he gave her a thumbs up. That Jukin stuff you did to the clone was pretty awesome too. Hinata gave an eep and passed out. Ah, Hinata-chan, what happened? Naruto asked, grabbing the unconscious girl and trying to shake her awake. Moron, Sasuke rolled his eyes. But it figures that you don't know about her crush. A roaring crash of water brought their attention back to the battlefield. A torrent spiraled out of the lake and crashed into Zabuza, sending him crashing back into the woods with his back against a tree. That. Damn. He grunted as Kakashi appeared on the branch above him. Can you see the future? Yes, Kakashi said as he readied a kunai. I foresee your death. Suddenly, Zabuza stiffened as two senbon needles appeared in his neck. With a gargling sound, he toppled over. You were right, said a new voice. His future was death. Everyone turned to see another Kiri nin standing on a branch. He was dressed in a hunter nin mask and battle kimono, 2 long strands of black hair framing his face. "Thank you for your assistance," the masked man said as he grabbed Zabuza's body and sword. "I've been tracking Zabuza for many days now. He proved to be quite elusive. I'll be taking his body now. I'll make sure you get part of the bounty." Naruto just stared at the masked man as he repositioned Zabuza's Zanbato on his back. "Goodbye," the man said as he vanished in a shunshin. "Kakashi-sensei," Naruto asked. "What just happened?" "I'll explain later, Naruto," he said as he replaced his headband over his Sharingan. "Sasuke." "Yeah?" the last Uchiha asked. "You're on carrying duty," he said with an eye smile as he passed out, the Sharingan having sucked up all his chakra. "Wake me when we get to Tazuna's house." Naruto slipped through the woods silently, constantly checking over his shoulder to see if he was being followed. Night had fallen and it was time to keep his promise to Makavity. They had reached Tazuna's house late in the afternoon, Kakashi-sensei still being carried over Sasuke's shoulder. Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, had given them all rooms in the house for while Kakashi recovered, which Hinata had deduced to be around a day and a half from looking at his chakra network, although she was sure that he would wake up by tomorrow morning. After some dinner they had all gone to bed, leaving Naruto to sneak out his window and head deep into the woods outside Tazuna's house. He would prefer taming Makavity inside, but he couldn't risk anyone hearing her being summoned. Harumi already knew about the deal he'd made with her and was fine with it. She actually said she would cover for him if anyone asked where he was. "This looks like a good spot," he nodded, reaching a nice-sized clearing. "Kachiyose." With a short puff of smoke, Makavity appeared. "Hey, Naruto," she giggled, grabbing the blonde up and hugging him close to her breasts, her immense Pokegirl strength crushing the air from his lungs. "Ow, ow, ow. Makavity-chan, that kind of hurts," he said as she let him down. "Oh, grow a pair," she said casually as she reached down and slid her mini-shorts around her ankles. "Time for you to uphold your promise." "Amazing," Makavity panted as she slumped against the tree, drawing Naruto into her lap. "You tired, Naruto?" The genin nodded. With the Cleric of Chaos always seemed to tire him out more than when he tamed Harumi. "Yeah," he said, "but that was really fun, Makavity-chan. Are you happy?" She nodded, kissing the top of his head lovingly before she stroked his whisker marks. He smiled and purred as she touched them, making her chuckle at her tamer's antics. "Get some rest," she told him. "I'll bring you back to the old drunk's house in a little bit." "MK," he said as he snuggled up close to her, using her breasts as pillows. "Makavity-chan? Thanks for being my Pokegirl," he grinned sleepily as he finally nodded off. She smiled down at him, hugging him closer. She looked down at his stomach where the seal was. His shirt was pulled up enough so that she could see the bottom markings of the seal that held back the Kyuubi. She pursed her lips. Should she do it? It could cause problems in the future for Naruto. But she needed to be sure of something first. She made up her mind and made a seal, closing her eyes and beginning to meditate, hoping to enter Naruto's mindscape. "You," she smirked as she turned around and faced the massive cage. "It's been a while, Kyuubi," she smirked with the same expression she had worn all those years ago when they had last met. The 9-tailed fox sprang from the darkness behind the bars, its claws and fangs grating off the cage with a flurry of sparks. "You," it yelled again as it kept attacking. "I'll kill you for what you did to her." "How are you going to do that from behind that cage?" she taunted, walking right up to the bars and grinning maliciously. Quickly, she formed a complex chain of hand seals, making more bars appear from the water beneath her. "There. That should keep you from interfering with Naruto's chakra control for a while." The fox roared and fired off a Bijudama at the bars, which held fast despite the power of the tailed beast ball. She shook her head and clucked her tongue at the raging Biju. "So rude," she said, leaning on one of the bars. The fox just roared at her and stood there glaring. "Come in here, you bitch," he growled. "Fight me." "I'd rather not," she smirked. "And I can't believe you're still angry about her. I thought you'd be angrier about that time you had to fight Mountain Tide and I played that prank on you the night before." The Kyuubi growled and turned even redder at the memory. Part of it was anger, and part of it embarrassment. But he recovered quickly and gave an evil snarl at Makavity. "She forgave you," he growled. "Even after what you did to her, what you did to Gigi, she still forgave you." The smirk died from her face as she turned and began walking back to her own mind. That was her mistake, she said coldly. And she paid for it. The Kyuubi's roar of anguish and hatred would have been heard for miles. The next day, Naruto panted heavily as he and Sasuke traded blows, jumping around as Kana blew out an ember at him. He jumped again and threw some shuriken at her, which Sasuke intercepted and deflected. Tora roared and lunged forwards, only to get caught in Harumi's leech seed. The tigress swayed for a moment, trying to rip as many of the draining vines off her, but finally succumbing and dropping to the ground with a mule and a kitty snore. Go Naruto, woo! Macavity cheered from the sidelines as Harumi fired off a vine whip at Kana. The fire type tried to quickly jump back to avoid the vines that wound themselves around her ankles, only to be caught and slammed into the ground and hogtied in a very bondage-esque way. She grunted and thrashed around, attempting to light the grass on fire. Ha, Harumi said as she tightened the vines. I win. She suddenly yawned. But now I'm sleepy, she mumbled as she lay down for a sunbathe. I guess that's enough sparring, Naruto said, lowering his kunai and walking towards his lazy Pokegirl. You just don't want to lose, Dobi, Sasuke smirked, tauntingly. Hell no, TT Ibeo, he yelled, charging Sasuke with his fist cocked. Ma, what's all the noise? Kakashi asked as he hobbled his way into the clearing with Hinata following him. With a stifled yelp of surprise, Macavity jumped and scrambled up into the tree above them like a cat fleeing from Akamaru and a dog catcher. Both Sasuke and Naruto choked on their own laughter as Kana and Harumi squeaked and covered their mouths at the legendary's reaction. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said, trying to hold back his giggles. He knew that if he laughed, Macavity would kill him. Sad thing is he really wanted to laugh. Ho, how are you feeling? The one-eyed Jonin paused a moment and eyed his student. Even without his Sharingan, he could see the flattened patch of grass at the base of the tree behind Sasuke. He knew it was too big to belong to either of them, and then there was the matter of Naruto's guilty look. Sasuke also looked like he was up to something, not to mention both of their Pokegirls were looking away and whistling. Something was up with his squad. Something that seemed to be revolving around Naruto. I'm just fine, Naruto, he said with a casual eye smile. In fact, I think we're ready to begin our training. Really? Awesome, Naruto yelled. Finally, Sasuke smirked. Hinata just smiled a little and shifted closer to Naruto. So what are we gonna learn first, Kakashi-sensei? He asked. Are we gonna learn how to spit fire? Fly? Kill demons with our pinkies? No, and no, we will not learn how to kill things with our pinkies, Naruto, he said. For your first exercise, you will. All three genin and their Pokegirls leaned forward slightly. Climb a tree. All of them tripped, sans Tora, who woke up thanks to a shot of Harumi's lust dust. What kind of bullshit excuse is that? Naruto screamed. You probably just want to read that stupid buha? Kakashi was walking up the side of the tree as easily as he would on flat ground. It's all about chakra control, he said, casually, as if he was talking about the weather. Focus your chakra into your feet and... Alright, Naruto exclaimed, running right at a tree. I'll get this my first shot. He ran at the tree, took one step, and was blasted off into the woods with a yelp that sounded like a two failed criminals and their Meowth hit with a thunderbolt. Ha! Macavity failed to hold back her laughter before slapping her hands over her mouth with a squeak. What was that? Kakashi asked. Sounds like some kind of bird. Sasuke put forward, sweating slightly as Hinata and Harumi ran after Naruto. Birds don't laugh, Kakashi said in a low tone, raising his headband to stare into the canopy. Sasuke swallowed and watched his sensei, Kana and Tora tense as well. If Kakashi found out about Macavity, there was no telling what he would do. Most likely he would attack her. After all, he would have good reason to. Flashback. After the bell test, Kana, he called as he and the Karamanda walked into the Uchiha compound. Yes, Sasuke-sama? The petite fire-type answered. How much do you know about Naruto's new Pokegirl? He asked. Macavity-sama or Harumi-san? She asked. Macavity, he said. He knew from Iruka's lectures that Macavity was a legendary Pokegirl, and that meant she was strong. But legendary Pokegirls were secretive and rarely seen, and that was why he was puzzled. Why would a legendary make herself seen now of all times? And to Naruto of all people? Makavati-sama is an enigma even to Pokegirls, Kana said as she opened the door for Sasuke, blowing out an ember onto a candle she had on the table to illuminate the room. She has always done what she wanted, when she wanted, wherever she wanted. Most times, she acts like a child. But sometimes she can turn as cold as the most experienced assassin. She is a legendary and thus she is not one fight alone. I don't know what her exact abilities are, and I apologize for this, Sasuke-sama. I believe that she is in your bingo book, though. Perhaps that will tell you more about Makavati-sama? He nodded and went to the Uchiha clan library, pulling out the newest edition of the bingo book. Flipping past the shinobi section after taking time to glare at the picture of Itachi, he arrived on Makavati's name. His eyes bugged out as he read the few sentences page. No date available? He breathed. If seen, flee on sight. Highly unpredictable. Flee on sight. That was usually given to extremely powerful shinobi. Minato Namikaze, Hashirama Senju, and Madara Uchiha all had that same ranking. People who were given this ranking were usually S rank or higher. He blanched. She was the same skill level as Itachi. Naruto's first Pokegirl could fight his Aniki and possibly beat him. But she seemed so nice and fun-loving when she appeared. She was nothing like the man who had killed their family all those years ago. What kind of a monster is she? He wondered as he stared at the blurry picture of the orange feline goddess. End flashback. OWWWWW. Naruto moaned as he walked back into the clearings, holding his head. What the hell? I thought you said channel chakra to your feet and everything would be fine? Yes, but you didn't let me finish, Kakashi said, looking away from the treetops to focus on his student. I was about to say that you have to find the right amount of chakra to stick to the tree. Too little and you'll fall off. Too much and you'll be blasted away like how you were just now. He reached into his kunai holster and threw the three of them one knife. Use these to mark your progress on the tree, he said. When you reach the top, come and find me for the next step. Peace. With that, he vanished in a shunshin. Hey, Naruto said with a foxy frown. Is it just me, or is our sensei a lazy pervert? Sasuke nodded. It's not you, Dobi. Anyo. Maybe he still needs to recover? Hinata stuttered. PSSH, right, Naruto said. Then how come he keeps reading that book instead of teaching us? Master will do great, Harumi yawned as she sat up and rubbed her eyes. Thanks, Haru-chan, Naruto said as he hugged the busty plant type. Sasuke-sama will do better, Kana said, confidently. Sasuke smirked and wrapped his arm around the petite fire-type's shoulder, pulling her close. As if, Harumi snorted. Master is the best there is. No, Sasuke-sama is 100 times better than Naruto. Kana retorted. The two of them got up in each other's faces, began staring at each other and growling, sparks of electricity dancing between their eyes. Naruto and Sasuke's sweat dropped. It seemed a new rivalry had been formed. I'll take this tree, he said as he walked over to a large oak. He took a deep breath and focused his chakra to the bottoms of his feet. Last time he had used way too much chakra and the result had been a failure. This time I'll just use less chakra, he decided as he charged up half the amount of chakra he'd used before. He ran at the tree and took a step up. His foot stuck fast and he quickly ran up the side of the tree. Yada, I'm doing it, he said as he ran up and made it about 10 feet off the ground before his control faltered. Not bad, Sasuke said from his on position about 15 feet off the ground. For a dobi, that is. Naruto huffed and ran up there again, making 12 feet before he lost it and fell. Darn it, he growled as Harumi brushed some dust off his jacket. Naruto-kun, Hinata stammered as she inched closer and closer to her crush. I could help you, if YYUW wanted. Nah, but thanks for the offer, Hinata-chan, he said as he got up and readied the kunai. I gotta do this on my own. The Hyuga heiress deflated noticeably before returning to her own tree. Naruto ran again and again, making an inch's worth of progress with each failure. Half an hour later, all three genin were noticeably panting, their chakra reserves down to half their original size. You're doing really well, Naruto, Makavati said in his ear, completely invisible from the rest of the squad. Thanks, Makavati-chan, he huffed. But I still can't get to the top of this stupid tree. Why don't you start over on a fresh tree? Harumi asked, pointing deeper into the woods towards a lake. I saw some good oaks over there. Maybe we can try on one of them? Great idea, Haru-chan, he grinned, grabbing her hand and dragging her off. I'm gonna keep trying on another one, guys. GG, good luck, Naruto-kun, Hinata said meekly. Don't go too far, Dobi, Sasuke warned. We don't know what kind of Pokegirls are in these woods. Yeah, Teme, Naruto said with a dismissive wave of the hand. See y'all later. Once they were out of sight, Macavity dropped her invisibility and snatched up Naruto, rubbing her face against his. Basti was right, she thought hearing him almost purr when she rubbed his whisker marks. These are adorable. Here we are, master, Harumi said, pointing to a large oak tree on the banks of a lake. Thanks, Haru-chan, he said as the Bulbasaur blushed at his praise. Huh? The plants to his right rustled violently as a human shape burst from them. A flash of polished steel glinted in the sunlight, alerting him to the danger. Acting on pure instinct, he raised his kunai and blocked the blow that would have rent him in two. Sparks flew as steel grated on steel, metal grinding and screeching in a brutal stalemate. He stood there, arms shaking as his blade stayed locked with the attackers. His eyes roamed the attacker's body, trying to identify her. She was a little taller than him, with a very thin frame which he could feel was to deceive opponents about her strength. Her build was athletic, like a shinobi's. Her lithe body was covered by a red and black leather samurai chestplate. Her forearms' legs had similar leather armguards and shin guards, but she wore no helmet. Her crimson hair was done up in a top knot, allowing her piercing green eyes to bore into his own blue pools. Her katana was an ornate one, with a black hilt and a blade that shone in the sun. What the hell, Datbeo? He yelled as the attacker disengaged and jumped back a few feet before charging again, this time aiming for a blow to his neck. She didn't even make it 2 steps. Vines sprouted from the ground around her ankles as Macavity's dark blade reached her throat. She froze at the contact, but kept her sword raised at Naruto as he approached her. Who the hell are you? He asked. Why did you attack me? The girl did not answer. Macavity looked her over once, sniffed, and nodded. She's a Pokegirl, Naruto, she said. She's probably a Ronin, right? Harumi asked, making sure her vines double knotted the Ronin's ankles. The attacker said nothing to affirm their claim. She just stood there and silently glared at Naruto. Her lips moved, curving upwards into a bloodthirsty smile. Die, she whispered as she suddenly spun her sword around her legs and hacked away Harumi's vines. Then, quick as greased lightning, she turned and slashed at Macavity, forcing the Cleric of Chaos back. She turned and sprinted at Naruto, ready to drive her sword through Naruto's neck. Shit, I won't make it in time. Macavity realized as she attempted to teleport to him to protect him. Next to her, Harumi launched her vines again at the Ronin. Her face is contorted in a mask of fear and panic. Master, run, she yelled as her vines failed to ensnare the Ronin. Naruto just smirked and raised his kunai before running at the Ronin. He switched it around to reverse grip, meeting her katana strike and diverting the blade into the soil. I ain't running anymore, he said with a grin as he grabbed the handle of the katana with one hand and spun around on it, delivering a powerful kick straight to the Ronin's face. Believe it, the Ronin went limp as she crashed backwards onto the ground, dazed and confused from Naruto's kick. You copied that move from Zabuza. Harumi gasped. Yeah, he grinned. It looked like it could come in handy sometime. Keep that up and people will think you have the Sharingan, Macavity chided. First with Sasuke, now with this Zabuza guy. Hey, blame Kakashi-sensei, he frowned. He never teaches us anything. Suddenly the sword next to him vanished in a puff of smoke. He looked over and saw it reappear in the hands of the Ronin, who got to her feet. Despite her split lip and bleeding mouth, she seemed unfazed. She smiled again, although this time she seemed more excited than bloodthirsty. You're much different than the others, she said. Gato must have paid extra for you. Wha? Gato? Naruto shouted. What the hell makes you think I wore? No, she shouted. Talk is cheap. We will fight. If you defeat me, I will let you finish that sentence, human. If I win, it will not matter. Let me take care of this, Naruto, Macavity said, stepping in front of him with a dark blade active. The Ronin swallowed when she saw Macavity, but did not bow like Harumi and Kana did. No, he said, stepping in front with a contract seal ready. I'll fight her, Macavity-chan. After all, He turned to her and smiled. What kind of shinobi would I be if I made you guys fight my battles? Macavity pursed her lips and scowled. Fine, she growled. But Harumi and I will intervene if we feel we have to, understand? He nodded and held up the contract seal for the Ronin to see. Her eyes narrowed and she ground her teeth at the sight of the sealed tag. With a roar, she ran forwards, her sword making elegant arcs through the air. Naruto jumped backwards as she advanced, trying to keep out of range of her strikes. She was very fast, managing to keep up with him as he jumped around, blocking whatever strikes she could with his kunai. She suddenly feinted left and then swept her blade right, catching him across the cheek and drawing blood. Damn, she's fast, he thought as he blocked 2 more strikes, wincing as the cut stung. I gotta get away now or she'll kill me. Suddenly an idea popped into his head. He grinned and continued to retreat, baiting her to follow him. Jumping as far away as he could, he formed the ram seal and focused his chakra to his feet. Quickly, he turned around and sprinted up the trunk of the nearest tree. The Ronin followed him, making the same seal and running up after him. He dropped low with his kunai arm and scored the thickest part of the biggest branch on the tree, the sharpened metal cutting a few inches into the wood. He jumped backwards onto the branch as the Ronin swung her blade at him, missing and cutting almost all the way through the branch. He inwardly smirked, seeing her fall right into his trap. He backed out further and further onto the branch right until he was over the clearing. The Ronin grinned and raised her sword high over her head. Die well, shinobi scum, she said. Naruto just grinned and stomped as hard as he could on the branch. With a crack, the limb gave way and the both of them were sent tumbling to the ground 15 feet below them. In midair, Naruto grabbed the Ronin by her shoulders and rolled on top of her, using her body to protect him as they hit the ground. With an earth-shattering thud, they hit, Naruto springing to his feet and readying a kunai in case. The Ronin just lay there, unmoving. Master. He was suddenly hit by a flying green blur. You did it, Haru-chan, he said as he struggled to keep upright. Oof. A tall orange blur slammed into his other side, lifting both him and Harumi off the ground altogether. Macavity-chan, I'm okay, he said, feeling the feline legendary attempt to cram his head in between her breasts. Honest, I'm fine. She let out a sigh and put him down. I know, she said before looking at the downed form of the Ronin. What are we going to do with her? Naruto held up the contract seal. Are you sure, master? Harumi asked. She just tried to kill you. Naruto just rolled the Ronin over, trying to find a spot where he could unbuckle her armor and put the seal. Suddenly he grinned. On her backside, right below her tailbone, was a palm-sized patch of exposed skin, the armor that protected it having been damaged in the fall. He quickly applied the seal, pressing it firmly against the Ronin's right ass cheek. With a flash of red, the seal ensnared the Ronin, the color dying out as she woke. You beat me, she said, her voice trailing off as she curled in on herself. Yeah, he said with a smile. She hugged her knees and shivered, not even making a movement to grab her blade. I won't let you have me, she said in a low whisper. I would rather die than be tamed by dishonorable scum like you. Hey. Harumi ran out and placed herself in front of Naruto. Don't call my master scum. Yeah, what did I do to you? Naruto asked, moving Harumi out of the way. You should know, scum, she said, her teeth grinding. You and the other Nuke Nin who are on Gato's payroll. What? Naruto shouted. I don't work for Gato. I'm a Konoha shinobi. He told her all about the mission and how he and his teammates were going to free Nami no Kuni from the shipping tycoon's control. With every word he spoke, the Ronin slowly uncurled until she was sitting upright and looking him in the eye. I see, she said as she slipped into the doggies position, her head touching the ground as she bowed before Naruto. I have misjudged you, Naruto-sama. Forgive me for my insolence towards my new master. So you want to join us? Macavity asked from the tree she was leaning against, whittling a stick with her claws. Of course, she said, raising herself into a seiza position. It will be a great honor to fight by Naruto-sama's side. My blade is his to command. Awesome. Naruto beamed as he extended his hand to the Ronin. Thank you, Naruto-sama, the Ronin said as she got up and retrieved her blade, sheathing it at her side. Naruto-sama? Yeah? He asked. Oh, wait, I didn't give you a name. He took a thinking pose and frowned hard as he racked his mind for a suitable name. Suzuka, he finally said. Your name is Suzuka. Suzuka blushed and bowed. Thank you, Naruto-sama, she said. But, I was wondering, when you were planning to tame me? Ga, right? He said. When should I do it? Why don't you do it right here? Macavity said, spreading her arms at the clearing. Harumi and I will give you some privacy, right? I want a taming, the Bulbasaur pouted as Macavity lead her away. Is right here okay, Suzuka-chan? He asked, looking at the Ronin. Yes, Naruto-sama, she said, her cheeks gaining a healthy flush. Please, tame me, I'm back, Naruto called as he walked through the door, his two Pokegirls following behind him. Macavity had opted to return to Konoha for the rest of the day, making Naruto promise to summon her once night fell. What took you so long, Dabo? Sasuke said as he laid eyes on Suzuka. Hinata scowled hard as she saw the Ronin's hand firmly grasped around Naruto's. Well, what do we have here? Kakashi said as he hobbled into the room. Naruto quickly explained what had transpired in the last half hour, leaving out the specifics of when he tamed Suzuka. Kakashi just nodded as he spoke, as if he wasn't paying attention to a word the blonde said. He wasn't even reading his smut. Well, that's quite a story, Naruto, he said. And you managed to capture a C-ranked Pokegirl in addition to completing the tree-walking exercise. Naruto-sama was able to use it in combat as well, Suzuka said, rubbing the invisible blow to her pride. He would not have been able to defeat me otherwise. Hinata's scowl deepened and her hands clenched to the point where her nails almost drew blood. Tora and Kana noticed and slowly edged away from her and over to Sasuke's side. Good work, Naruto, Kakashi said, ruffling the Genin's hair. I'm surprised you were able to find her. There aren't that many Pokegirls around here. About that, Naruto said, his happy expression fading into something more serious.